one of the first things you probably have been told since you started painting miniatures in a semi-serious way is that you have to get a wet palette. And you need a wet palette to keep your paint moist, fresh, and usable at all times. And it's gonna be that way for days and days and days, right? Right. Nope, not really. As far as my experience with wet palettes is concerned, I think they're very useful to keep the paint fresh and moist and to allow you to get the right mix if you want to play around with tones. That's super useful, but that is only applicable to one session of painting, especially if you are in a warm and dry weather. At that time, you might encounter a series of problems like your paint is drying out, your paint will separate, so the medium that keeps together the pigment is gonna separate and it's gonna make a mess. Last but not least, mold, which can be really, really stinky and annoying to clean. So how do you solve the problem? Well, that's a little bit drastic, but let's just not be so dramatic, shall we? I'm just saying wet palettes are amazing tools, but I think for beginners, for people who are just starting out in a semi-serious way or want to get better or just starting out, really, I think there are better solutions and solutions that are more suitable for their needs as beginners. So where's the solution, Alice? So you're telling all this bad stuff about wet palettes, but where's the solution? Well, I present you the ceramic palette. Finally, you have seen this in many of my videos and I'm finally gonna talk about it as it deserves, because it's an amazing tool that it should be more well known, because I don't see a lot of miniature painters or miniature painter YouTubers and artists talking about this palette, and that's a shame because it's a very, very useful tool. And I think this palette in particular, a ceramic palette, not an aluminum one, this one. I'm gonna leave the link down below for you to buy it, because you should, I think. But hear me out. They are very useful for beginners and I'm gonna tell you why. So first thing, you can create your own gradients like I've done in plenty of videos. You see me create all gradients, and with dropper bottles or with regular paint pots from GW, you can create exact ratios and the paint is gonna stay in the little hole. It's not gonna spill anywhere and create a mess and create confusion, which is, I think it's very, very good for someone who is just starting out. We don't want people who are getting into the hobby to be confused by the palette, so if the paint stays in the cup, I think it's useful. It's more clean, it's less messy, I think. And for example, here to paint the skin of this troll from Harry Potter Knight models, I have picked just 3 colors, a shadow, a middle tone, and highlight, and I'm just creating gradients. How am I creating gradients? Well, I just measure the droplets. So I'm taking some of that black red and putting on the left. I'm putting the shadows, so I'm gonna fill it in the left cup, and then I'm gonna do 2 drops and 1 drops like you see on screen, and I'm gonna do the same but in the opposite way with my middle tone. So I'm gonna fill it up in the middle pot, and then I'm gonna do 2 drops and 1 drop. And then I can adjust the mix. I'm doing that also with the highlights. You can choose how many of these gradients you want to mix. You want to have like 2 shadows, 2 highlights. You want to have 3 shadows, 3 highlights. You can go nuts with this. It's really useful, and you have the exact ratios in the pots. The paint is gonna stay there. You don't have to think about it, and you have a recipe for it. You have 2 drops, 1 drops, and it stays all there. Another important thing you can control very well with a ceramic palette is the dilution. I usually use this kind of distilled water that I buy in the pharmacy, and there are pure water. It doesn't have like limestone in it and stuff like that. So it's very useful to have a pipette or something like this so you can measure the drop. You can start with 1 drop and then adjust, because the problem of learning how to dilute your paint, it's to understand how the different brands and different paints in the brands themselves work. So you can start with just 1 drop of water and then see it from there. The paint has to flow, doesn't have to be liquid and spill everywhere. But that's good, you're gonna understand with time. All the paint confined into the hole, it allows you to see more clearly the consistency and adjust it more efficiently. I think all in all, it's an exceptional method to just learn and getting acquainted with the consistency of your paints. You ask. It's good that you asked. The paint, you can avoid this in a very simple way. You can use the same sponge that you would use for a wet palette and just cut it to size and dampen it and put it on your pots. If you put this sponge on the cups that you're using, it will increase the working time while you're working. If you want to increase the usage time for the paint you have on a certain palette, you can drop it in the fridge and it will last for up to a week, I think. But you have to remember to dampen the sponges once in a while, because otherwise they're gonna dry out. The paint is gonna dry out, even if it's in the fridge. And I hear you say, but wet palettes can go in the fridge too. Yeah, but the problem is the same. I don't want to say that there are unsolvable problems and you can solve most of them, but every tool has its limits. Having said that, I'm not saying that you shouldn't be using a wet palette. I use it every day, pretty much every day. I think it's a great tool, but like I said, every tool has its pros and cons. That's just the way it is. And I think for beginners, it's not the best thing to suggest. I think I want to spread awareness on the ceramic palette for beginners, because I think no one talks about it but me, and maybe Stefano Loncioni. Come on, guys. Let's talk about this tool. It's a good tool for beginners. And also, I think wet palette, it's kind of an advanced tool, because I personally use it when I have to mix a lot of tones, so I want to have the freedom of having a big wet palette. And also when I do 2D canvas, I want the freedom of mixing my own tones when I mix skin tones, putting blues, putting yellows, reds and whatnot. But that's a little bit like advanced for someone who's just starting out, having a recipe, having 2 drops, 1 drops, 2 drop ratio to 1 drops of water. I think it's much more useful and have it contained rather than having it spill everywhere. And also to repeat the mixture, because some of the time especially when you spread a lot with your mixes, the more you spread out, the more it's gonna dry out quickly. So you're gonna have to remix. So you have to be able to do that, and do that with some amount of comfort and skill. Otherwise you're gonna lose time and be frustrated. We don't want that, do we? So that's what I have to say about wet palette. Hope that helps. I'm gonna be uploading the full tutorial of this troll. Check my Patreon. Otherwise, have a nice day and bye.